Is the SH Figuarts Indiana Jones the best 1/12 scale Indiana Jones figure? Let's find out.
It's morphin' time!
Special shout out to our channel members, including Infinity Wartorn, our Sound Squadron captain. You can join for as little as $1 a month down below to help support the channel, as well as get cool perks. Hit the join button to find out more details. Hello, this is Sanat here, and today we're taking a look at the SH Figuarts Indiana Jones. Now, this was not getting a US release, and I want to let everybody know. It only comes out in Japan and Asia because of licensing, but this looks like it might be a really solid indie figure. Of course, we will compare him to the Adventure series. I even have the Figma to compare to, so we will do some comparisons, of course, in the video. But this figure has a lot of accessories. Not only you got nice packaging art using the Raiders poster art, you got a shot of Indy here. He does have two different looks. So as you can see, he's got the jacket on, and you also get parts to swap him to have the non-jacket, plus 3 different expressions and a hat piece and a hair piece, plus the normal accessories you would expect. So let's take a look at this SH Figuarts Indiana Jones and see if it's worth your time when there are cheaper alternatives on the market. So here is SH Figuarts Indiana Jones. Now, this is pretty cool. I'm actually pretty impressed by this overall, I gotta say. First things first is how it comes out of the box, which is interesting because usually they don't leave accessories like hooked onto figures, but they left the whip hooked to them. They have the gun holster here. Interestingly, his bag is not here. That is a separate piece we will attach later. But this is how he comes out of the package, just straight, boom, Indiana Jones. Let's talk faces. I think faces have been a discussion with the Hasbro Indiana Jones line. I think Figuarts did a good job. I think they actually probably nailed it just a little bit better than the way Hasbro did. I know we got a lot of shadow coming in from that hat, but I think the overall face itself looks pretty good. There are, of course, some angles that'll look better than others, but in general, I think they captured Harrison Ford pretty well on this. I also do appreciate they sculpted in his scar on his chin. That's a detail that's really easy to miss because of how small it is, but it is there, which is really, really nice. But yeah, if you're looking at this guy, of course, at this close-up, he may not look as good as he does there, like when you're looking at it from a shelf. And that's kind of like, you know, always the discussion is, especially when you do toy reviews, is like, yeah, let's look at it, you know, we'll look at it this close, but you want to look at it that close? Because naturally, you're not even going to look at it that close. It's going to be like over here. But anyways, I think overall, body-wise, looks pretty good. I think what's interesting is much like a lot of SH Figuarts for the Star Wars lines and stuff, he doesn't have any dirt anywhere to him. He is completely clean. I think it works here better because, you know, this is like Indy before he gets out and about and messing his clothes up. So, you know, it looks good for him, whereas like Stormtrooper armor, you're like, it's not so pearly white or whatnot. So I think this overall does look good. I mean, proportion-wise, if you just have him standing there like that, there's really no complaints I can say with the actual body sculpt design because it is kind of a simple design. It's jacket, shirt, pants, you know, hat. That works for me. The other interesting part here that we have is the way that they sculpted the legs means that you don't get the normal Figuarts double joints, but you instead get a really intense single joint. So let's go over articulation. First things first, with these knees, yeah, they are single joints, but they are on these kind of like circle joints, I guess you could call them. So it's a single, it goes all the way back like that. So it's got a pretty good range to it. It does have a slight adjustment here. You've got a slight pivot here, an in pivot, not so much an out pivot, but a forward and back, and then a bit of a toe joint, which is nice. Hips that move out only about that far. Whoa, and there is the ball joint popping out. So as you can see, the hip design is essentially like it's got 2 ball joints on a barbell that connects up there, and so that way you get kind of like the motion. But then the hips themselves, because of the sculpt of the pants, they don't get that much range. But I need to get this all hooked back together here. Now moving up into the torso, he does have a waist joint. Like I said, it's a ball joint, so it moves all around. Upper torso ball joint as well. These shoulders move out. They move forward just a bit. It has got a little bit of a hinge there. And of course, you can 360 them. It's just going to be out on a weird angle due to the way the shoulder sculpt is. And again, we will look at that in a minute. But you got a single elbow. It only goes about that far. For Indiana Jones, it's not too bad. Ball joint here, and then a ball joint at the bottom of the neck, and then one at the top of the neck, and the hat comes off, but we'll get there. So you got, I think, a decent range. Like, it's not going to be as posable as some other SH Figuarts, like the Tokusatsu or the anime ones, but for Indiana Jones, I think it's a good range of articulation, and it's not like he's missing anything you would sort of expect from him. Now, he does have all that articulation, he has all this detail, but he does come with a ton, and I mean a ton of accessories. So let's run down those. So going over his hands, he's got 2 fists for punching Nazis. He has these 2 relaxed hands, and then all his other hands are accessory specific, including this one, which is to hold his hat, which you can totally do. But then you're like, well, what about that giant gold knob on his head? Let's talk faces. So we've been looking at this neutral expression, but say you want something more dynamic. Well, the way the actual face swap works, you pop the hat off, and then you can just pull up under his chin, pop the face right off, and then you can swap in another face here, like the kind of snarling, kind of pissed off Indy, more tired Indy than anything. Again, another decent likeness. Let's take the hat off just for a moment so you can kind of see it a little bit better. I think overall a pretty decent likeness. It's kind of an iconic Indy expression. It does look like he's looking straight up though, which is, I think, due to the eyebrows. So you can kind of fiddle with the angle on it. And then the third face is the smiling one, which I think is just very classic Indy. I actually like this one a lot. Usually smiling heads come off a little creepy. This one, it depends on the angle, but I think once you get imposed, again, at a distance, because that's just how figures are designed to be, it looks pretty good. I like the smile. Now, if you want them without the hat, they do give you options for that. So you need to pull the whole head off, which isn't too hard. And then, so this is like the face as well. But then you get a separate piece that is the hair. I do like the hair. However, I don't exactly think it looks the best. So any of the 3 faces work on either hair piece, but once you plug it on, you just got to kind of like line it up on that ball joint connection. Boom. There you go. There you got a hatless Indy, which I think looks good. And the only problem I have is his hair is incredibly shiny. The actual plastic type used, you can see on this one, it's kind of a gold plastic, and then they paint the hair on top of that. So I think some of the gold kind of came through, so it lightens up his hair in weird places, but it looks really reflective. Again, that may be just a minor complaint, but it is kind of a critique. But, you don't usually see Indy without his hat and his jacket. In fact, they also give you an option to not have the jacket. And in fact, if you're wondering how does Indy's bag get under the jacket when it's not, usually, I mean, I think on some of the figures you have like the actual bag goes over his shoulder, but it's supposed to go under the jacket so it gets out of the way, but it's kind of hard to do so. Luckily, this guy does have a swappable option, so you can pop the arms out. You just got to kind of bring them out like this, and you can kind of see how the shoulder joints work, where it's got this little bit of a hinge. But you can just pop these off. If you want to just put the bag on, you only have to pop one off, fit it over his head, get it under the jacket, put the jacket over the satchel, because that's just kind of like, that's how he usually carries it, like that. And then you can just pop that back on. There you go, satchel in place. But let's pop these shoulders off. Let's take the jacket off. You can pop the other shoulder off here, like that. And so now you've got harmless Indy. He's smiling about it. He doesn't seem too bothered. He doesn't seem too bothered by this. And then you have the other arms, which have these little like separate pieces. You put those in place, line them up, pop them in like that. And then you get the other arm here. And then we got the other arm on this side here, which just pops right in. Should just pop right in. It's a little tricky because it doesn't want to work now that it's on camera. So there you go. Now we have jacketless Indy. And what I like about this is that you get kind of a different look. You have options. You can remove the bag. It doesn't have to be here. You can just kind of have this look of Indy, which I don't think we actually have from Hasbro, because Hasbro just has like Cairo Indy where like the shirt's untucked and everything. This is kind of just, casual Indy, which I think is really, really cool. Articulation-wise, it is about the same. Elbows go about that far. The wrists move a little bit more because they're less restricted. The shoulders move a lot more. Instead of just going forward a little bit, they can go back because they are on a ball joint. And then it has a slight bicep swivel, or slight shoulder swivel. There's no real bicep swivel. There's a slight elbow swivel, but that's about it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool that they give you the options to have jacket, no jacket. Like, you can do both in one figure, which is nice considering the price of SH Figuarts. Now for his whip, of course, you get the coiled up one here. It just pops right off the belt. They actually include a tiny little coiled part, so that way you can clip that in to fill in that hole for where the actual holder for the whip is. And then now you can actually have him use the whip. So there is the whip. This is, of course, a separate piece from the other one. This one is just the coiled up version. This is the full out. There is no other options. It's not a bendy wire. It is just stiff plastic. You can also see how his wrist is having issues holding it. I've noticed with the wrist, if you turn it too far, you have to kind of wedge it in, and then as soon as you like bump it, it'll just swing out. But yeah, you can kind of get the dramatic whip action there. I like the way it looks. I like the color. I like the color as the brown, not like the orange that Hasbro did. And overall, you can pose them pretty good. Though I have noticed you can bump off the gun holster pretty easily. When I was trying to get a pose together for this guy, it just kept bumping off. But you do get the whip. Like I said, you got this going on. This is probably the most annoying part, is the way that wrist is just floating. And then on the left hand, if you did want to have him hold the whip, it does take some stretching to get that hand open the first time, but you can have him hold it in this hand as well. So you got options on how you want to pose with the whip. So of course you do get his classic pistol and a hand to hold it. It looks really good. It's painted nice. My only complaint is that the holster on his waist is clearly, empty. It's without the pistol, but even though it comes off, it doesn't come with a pistol in the holster piece. So it's always going to look like he's missing the pistol if you're not holding it, which is going to matter to you whether or not you care about 100% accuracy. For me, I won't notice it, especially if you're wearing the jacket, because the jacket kind of covers it. But if he's not wearing the jacket, it's way more noticeable. It's like, oh, he lost his pistol. But that's also a common enough occurrence in Indiana Jones that it's fine. But it is something that's weird that they included a separate piece to fill in that tiny little spot on the belt with the whip, but they didn't include like an extra holstered pistol on top of the regular one. Now, with this being a Raiders of the Lost Ark Indy, everything else is Raiders based. So he does have the bag of sand that he swapped out for the gold idol, and this hand is the one that is fitted for it. You can see that actually they sculpted the detents for the fingers into the bag, so that way you can just slide it in. It holds in place. It looks pretty good. I think it's a nice replica of that accessory. Now, of course, you do get the Golden Fertility Idol itself, nicely painted. And what's really cool is Hasbro attempted to have Indy hold his idol by just having it friction into place. Figuarts came up with a new system. So you see there's a little bit of an indent on this open hand, and then the mouth is sculpted open. So you just squeeze that into the mouth, and then now Indy can carry the idol in whatever position you want him in, except like you can't sling it under his arm because of the articulation restriction, but you can hold on to it and it's not going to go anywhere because it's slotted into the hand. So I think that's super clever and a really smart idea on how to deal with the holding the idol situation. Now, the last accessory is one we haven't seen from any other company, which is the Staff of Ra headpiece. Very nicely detailed, as you can see. I don't want to lose it, so I'm going to keep it in his hand. Very nicely detailed. They painted the gem in the center. It does have the part that should be cut out, which I think is great. It's really nice to see something that small recreated like this, because you couldn't do this at a Hasbro level. It'd be too tiny, I think. But he does come with a specific hand to hold it. I do wish there was a way I could get Marion to hold it from Adventure Series, but her hands are just too large for that. So before we compare Indy to Indy, let's look at some size comparisons. First up here, we have SH Figuarts Ultraman Mabius and Commodore Geats Magnum Boost. So you can kind of see that he does scale a little bit taller than the Ultraman and a little bit shorter than the Kamen Riders, because these are about the average height of the current lines of both. So he's kind of an average Figuart size, but he's not exactly like, either or. For other Figuarts, we got SH Figuarts Kuwagata Oger from the Sentai line, and then I couldn't find any of my Star Wars Figuarts, because I do have Darth Maul somewhere, but I did know where Grogu was. I don't know if Grogu's a helpful comparison because of how he's sized, but I imagine Indy's kind of scaled similar to the SH Figuarts for Star Wars, but go seek out your comparisons and hopefully Grogu can help. But you can see he's even a little bit taller than Kuwagata Oger here, so that's kind of interesting as well. And then for anime, here is Kakashi Hatake from Naruto, and then we have Denji from Chainsaw Man. So you can kind of see he does sit about, what is like adult Naruto character height, and, Chainsaw Man height. So he is, again, average Figuart. The Toku ones skew a little different. Here he is next to a couple anime figures. Not necessarily to go like, oh, you're displaying your Indiana Jones with your Chainsaw Man, but more so to kind of show a general size compared to the other Figuarts lines. And then with a couple other high-end lines, here's the Mafex Nightwing and the Mezco 1/12 John Constantine. So both of these are kind of, again, 1/12 lines like Figuarts, but you can see kind of how they vary. He's definitely closer to a Mafex size than he is like a Mezco 1/12. So the Mezco 1/12 Indiana Jones is coming out that I'm not currently planning to pick up will probably be about this size. So if you're wanting kind of a comparison, like if you're thinking, oh, I'll get Figuarts Indy and 1/12 tote. So the Mezco 1/12 tote will probably be a little bit bigger than the Figuarts Indiana Jones. So then for Marvel Legends here we have the MCU Star-Lord from Volume 3 and the X-Men 97 Gambit, who uses a comic-based mold. So you can see that Indy's going to be a little bit smaller compared to like something like Marvel Legends, which tend to run a little bit larger on the 1/12 scale. And then for our Star Wars Black Series comparison, here's Pre Vizsla and Cassian Andor. So you can kind of see that Indy actually goes pretty good with Black Series. It tends, Figuarts in Black Series tend to run a little bit closer in size than like Figuarts Marvel to Marvel Legends. But let's take a look at Indiana Jones with Indiana Jones. So of course we're going to start with the Hasbro Adventure Series, Raiders of the Lost Ark Indiana Jones, and one of the worst action figures I've ever owned, the Figma Indiana Jones. I don't even know why he's still around. He is, I think you can just tell how much worse this guy is than these. I don't know what to do with this guy. I bought him because I was like, oh, it's an indie figure because they made it when there was no indie figures happening. Boy, bringing him out for this makes me go, wow, okay, you just need to. So he's not really in the running. In terms of like how they look, first of all, scale-wise, pretty dang close. Yeah, the Adventure Series runs a little bigger, just a smidge. If you wanted to put this in an Adventure Series display, totally doable. In general, I do kind of like the way that Hasbro added kind of like folds and fades to the leather. Let's go a little close up there. You can kind of see how with the Hasbro, they added a little bit of paint wash for the jacket. This looks like a cleaner jacket. And again, that's totally fine, like I mentioned earlier. But I will say that, like, in general, the figure art is a lot more detailed. I still think the Hasbro sculpt is pretty decent for the Harrison Ford likeness on here, especially for the Hasbro budget, because this is like a $25 figure. This is like an $80 figure. So yeah, of course the figure is going to look a little bit better. It's got more money pumped into it. But in general, like, Hasbro did a really good job, and I still think they really did. And in fact, I think it's funny because the figure art got that much range on one joint. The Adventure Series got pretty much the same. It's kind of funny that articulation isn't really a factor as much here. So ultimately, I will say that I think I like the Indiana Jones figure art more than the Adventure Series, but I was also willing to pay the extra money for it, which not everybody's going to be willing to do. But I still think the Hasbro one turned out pretty good. Oh, I forgot to put the whip on. I was going to make one whip comparison. Okay, there we go. I do like the coiled whip. It's a little bit bigger. It's less finicky because you just pop it on and you pop that little other piece on. This whole, like, having to manually loop it is kind of a pain. But I also just like the color better on the figure art. The figure art's got kind of what feels like a more natural brown. This is more of an orangish brown. I still think the Adventure Series Indy is really nice, but of course the figure art being more than 3 times the price does help it in a lot of areas to kind of give it a little bit better of a feel. But again, I kind of like both for different reasons. Then as an additional comparison, here's the Last Crusade Indy, which I haven't reviewed yet. I've reviewed every Adventure Series figure so far. I have one more wave to review that will be coming out in a little bit on the channel. This is the Wave 3 Last Crusade Indy, who's very similar, but you can kind of see this is your stern-faced Indy comparison between very similar looking outfits. Now for our Gritted Teeth Indy comparison, here's Temple of Doom Indy, and here is Cairo Indy. Which, it's funny, they all have kind of the same expression on their faces, which I think is kind of funny. I found that these two, the Cairo and the figure art, have almost the same kind of gritted expression. Not a bad option. I'm not going to swap the arms again for this segment, but, this is a different look because the shirt's untucked, it's dirty. That's, of course, like a different look because the shirt's, like, falling apart and stuff. This is going to be different, even when you have the jacket sleeves off than those two. So, if you're displaying all of them, you might put this guy without the jacket just to kind of give it a little bit of variety in comparison to the other indies from the Adventure Series. So now for Hatless Indy, we've got Hypnotized Indy, we've got Professor Indy, and then also Club Obi-Wan Indy, who's the same exact head. I was kind of just going to show like the hair color. I kind of like the hair color a little bit better on the Adventure Series ones than this one because it's kind of darker and then it's got that gold seeping through thing. I don't know, I kind of prefer the hair color. I do like the face on the figure art more. It looks a little less old compared to the other ones. Like, especially these two look a little bit older than I think he should at this point in time. So, again, also, he has a smiling face, which none of the others have. And then just for funsies, here's Map Room and Dial of Destiny Indy, who I don't really have any like correlating notes on. Though I do say that the whip design here, I do like how it was on the Dial of Destiny Indy, like I mentioned in the review. It's very similar here, where you just plug it on and then it's there. I like that more than the other system. But yeah, I mean, there's just a couple more indies. Now, this won't be for size comparison, but we're not done yet. So here we have Figma, Raiders, Crusade, Dial of Destiny, Cairo, Temple, Hypnotized, Club Obi-Wan, Professor, and Map Room. Okay, so you can't see the front row's faces because of the hats, but there is all the Indiana Jones figures in 1/12 scale that I have, and boy, do you not look great. I'd rather replace you with the second Raiders Indy I have from the Temple Escape. It's a lot of Indy, and I think the figure art stands out, but how does it work with other Adventure Series figures? So here we have Sala, Marion, and Brody. And yeah, if you're not going to be busting out the ruler and running the formula on is this a perfectly accurate Indiana Jones, I think it looks good with all the others. I think, honestly, you could slip them in place of the Adventure Series one if you wanted something a little bit more accurate, a little more detailed for at least Indy. He looks good with the others. He doesn't look too out of place, which is kind of impressive, especially on the Hasbro front for the other characters. And then just for fun, here he is with Dear Old Dad and Short Round. Dear Old Dad, Dr. Henry Jones Sr. will be reviewed at a future date. But yeah, you can kind of slip them in. It doesn't look completely out of place, which is really cool to see. And then one last figure comparison, Tote, Belloc, Ark of the Covenant. You know, just to kind of show how he can fit in with those. I honestly think it works. It may not work for everybody, but it works for me. But we're not done yet. Here's the SH Figuarts bag of sand. Here's the Adventure Series bag of sand. They look totally different for whatever reason. I didn't think this looked that inaccurate, but this looks a little bit more accurate. Bags of sand. And then here is the SH Figuarts idol and the Adventure Series idol. Very similar. This one's a little bit bigger, which is kind of interesting because the Figuart's just a tad smaller. But of course, the figure art does have the hole in the mouth to clip into the hand. This doesn't have as deep of a recess in the mouth, but when you get the shadow in it, it looks totally fine. I think that's what's so brilliant about the way they designed the connector. But we're not done yet. Here is SH Figuarts Indy, bag, and idol with the Adventure Series pedestal, and that looks pretty good. I think a little bit more natural than the Adventure Series can pull it off. But yeah, scale-wise, it works. I think it's kind of amazing how compatible Figuarts Indy is with the Adventure Series. Okay, now we're done with comparisons. So overall, is SH Figuarts Indiana Jones worth it? Depends on who you are. Are you a big Indiana Jones fan and want a figure that kind of covers multiple eras? Because yeah, pretty much this covers it. You have jacket, no jacket, hat, no hat, different expressions. You get the idol, you get the Staff of Ra headpiece. There's a lot to them. But also because of that, it does come at a price. He is a little bit more expensive, and he didn't get a US release. So a lot of Figuarts will get US releases, even if they are based on different properties. But this one didn't. It's kind of a thing with the Lucasfilm ones, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's Indy. They just don't get distributed in the US due to contract things with Hasbro. So he's going to be a little bit harder to get. So yeah, if you're in the market for a high-end, highly articulated, plenty of accessories Indiana Jones, this is for you. But for most people who are more casual fans, this may just be too expensive for what it is. But on my recommendation, I will say, if you are willing to spend the money on it, it is worth it. There's a couple fiddly things with the way the arms work, or the way the hat works, or the holster. Some stuff popped off while I was doing the video. It's just the inevitability of videos. But once he's on a shelf, he's pretty stable. So that's kind of the important part. And at the end of the day, it's a good-looking figure. I think they actually really did a good job. Now, whether or not there will be any future Indiana Jones Figuarts, probably unlikely, but I am pretty happy with the one they did make. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and tell me what you think of SH Figuarts Indiana Jones compared to the others. Hit subscribe and the notification bell for future videos on the channel, both Indy and SH Figuarts, and more. Consider joining the channel memberships to help support the channel directly at the join button down below for as little as $1 a month. You can also check out our Discord in the link below, where we have discussions about toys, action figures, and all kinds of fun stuff. My Monday live streams here on this YouTube channel, Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern. Check them out if you'd like. Also, you can find me at social media at SoundOut12. You can find my autograph designer in the Discord or on social media at DarkClaw643, and you can find Hero Club at hero-club.com for news, reviews, and more. So until next time, this is SoundOut saying goodbye.